Welcome back, everybody. This week, we are here to talk about GMs that know fixed ops. We know there are not a lot of them out there. I had put in my post for everybody to come and see the unicorns because there are just not a lot of GMs that understand the fixed side of the business. We have three with us here today that all not only understand the fixed side, but came out of the fixed side. And so we have with us today Randy Cook. He is the Vice President of Partner Development with OEM Interactive. Carol Kitts, the General Manager of Volkswagen of Fairfield. And Forrest Olson, the General Manager, Chevrolet of Mandan. Welcome, all of you. Appreciate you being here. Before we get going, a word to our sponsor, new sponsor this week. Show sponsor is Automotive Warranty Incorporated. Automotive Warranty, Network Incorporated is a family-owned and operated warranty claims and management service based out of Denver, Colorado. Over 30 years, their highly skilled 300-person staff has been processing manufacturer warranty claims. They currently process over 100 million in warranty every month. That is a giant number. And you can find them at awninc.com. Thank you, AWN Inc., for being our show sponsor this week. And we are starting with segment one. So the show is broken up into three segments. Segment one is going to be why be a GM. Segment two is the how-to of being a GM. And segment three that will round us out and finish us up is the road to being a GM. And so I want to start by opening this up to all of you for why be a GM. What drove each of you to actually want to be a general manager? Why not stay in your lane and do fixed ops? And Carol, we'll start with you in the middle.
All right. So what drove me to want to be a GM was I was ready for the next step. I was very comfortable in my fixed ops world. I love fixed ops; it's my passion, and so I felt like I was ready to get to a different level where I could make a greater impact. With a leadership position that will allow me to grow my team and people to the next level. So that was my main thing, just getting ready to get to the next level, getting ready to make a greater impact, not just with my team and employees, but in a community level, being able to do more for a community if I was the GM of a specific dealership. And that's what drove me to want to get to that decision.
That's awesome. That's a little bit different position that I don't think is thought about enough. Is that you can drive a little bit more of that community engagement that is even more important nowadays as consolidation of dealerships and groups happens. Sometimes that community feel of a store can tend to fall off. Thank you, Carol. Randy, you're up next, buddy.
Yeah, I grew up in an automotive family. My father was a fixed ops director for 40 plus years. And it kind of brings me back to a story that he told me, or that I remember, the GM of at the time when I was 15, I was just cleaning cars and, being the lot boy. He asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I asked him, well, what's your title? And he told me GM. And I said, well, that's what I want to be. He said, I want to be the boss of my dad. And ironically, and there's, during the segments, I ended up being the boss of my dad. So that's what kind of got me in there. I went into, business school, obviously graduated and all that stuff. And 2009 was not a great year to graduate with any sort of degree. So lo and behold, I ended up working for my dad for the first 3 years. And then when he retired, I took over as the fixed ops director when I was, say, 24, 25. So I was given the keys to the Cadillac early, but that's kind of what sort of drove me to become and elevate is, the passion to just succeed and excel and be on the top, I guess, if you will.
Mm-hmm. It's awesome. I love that. I love the fact that you came from a car family.
Yeah.
That's not where I came from. My dad was a horticulturist, not a car guy. But Forrest, how about you?
Yeah, my situation and story is a little different and unique, but yeah, long story short, I was turning wrenches a little over a couple of years ago, really, and I approached our managing partner or dealer and kind of just said, "Hey, I'm about 14 years into fixed. I'm kind of at the point where it's just not as exciting, I guess is the right word. I just wasn't learning as much as I'd like to. And I'm one of those people that's always got to have something new and exciting going on to stay engaged and keep pushing the needle. So I just approached him and asked if I could swap to variable at some point, whether it's F&I or on the desk or sales or whatever. And yeah, a few days later, I was the GM up here. So typical
That's
automotive experience.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's the way of the automotive world, right?
Yep.
Here's your chair. Go sit in it.
Yep.
Figure it out later. So that kind of answers my next question for Forrest. But for Carol and Randy, who first supported you in your desire to want to move to that role, to be a GM? We know a lot of times in the dealership, you're in a position, you're operating at high level. Sometimes the last thing the dealership wants to do is pluck you out of that and put you somewhere else, right? They want you to keep operating at that high level, doing what you're doing. So Randy, you first on this one.
Yeah. So the owner of the dealership approached me, and we had just bought the store next door, and he had gone through the pros and cons and everything. And he said, "Look, you're the guy that's been here the longest. You're the guy that's you've helped grow the original store that we had purchased in 2010." And he said, "Look, I don't trust anybody else other than you to do this." And so that's so he was obviously a big component. My father, who was retired at the time, he I'm obviously looking for advice, and he was a big supporter. He knew that whether I was the captain on a baseball team in college or whatever, he was like, "You got this. Like you know how to do this. You've ran a very successful. You've taken a service department that was literally had a retention of less than 20% and brought it all the way up to 70% in 4 or 5 years." And he's like, you got this, you can do this. And honestly, with me developing the e-commerce with our parts e-commerce store, I was really close with Aaron Waters, who I work for now. And he was the one that was like, "Yeah, dude," he was like, "You got this. Like you really." So I really had 3 strong supporters there.
That's awesome. Looks like we lost Carol there. So Forrest, I apologize. You have become Carol.
Nice. I'm Carol for the rest of the show.
So let's move into the challenges that you faced when you took over that role. Obviously, much different than running just the fixed ops department, although probably a lot of similarities. But new area for both of you. What challenges were there?
Yeah, I mean, I could take this one. It's probably the most obvious is, you grew up in fixed ops. It's really becomes your love and your passion, and you understand it, and you see the success of it. And so when you take yourself 100% out of that, when you don't have that daily 100% focus on fixed ops, that was a big challenge of mine, especially with the e-commerce store that I had. And, we had grown it to, the #1 e-commerce for that particular manufacturer in the country. And that was probably the biggest challenge, overall. I mean, again, being a GM of a new store, probably also like learning how to get people to buy in, to the processes and procedures, and if you will.
Awesome. Forrest?
My experience was similar. Most of my pain points were just learning variable. I mean, it was one of those things where I'd been in fixed for so long and multiple facets of fixed, almost every role of it, and then the next day you wake up and you're just entrenched in variable. So really just learning the ins and outs of it and understanding that the personnel they're just not the same. They function a little bit differently, at least in my experience, where fixed people seem to be very procedural and you create a process, kind of brief it, and then check in once in a while. And for the most part, in the fixed side, it runs pretty smoothly. Variables, in my experience so far, is seemingly different. It's a lot of retrainings, a lot of role playings, a lot of just got to dive into it a little bit more to solidify your processes. That on top of literally just learning all the variable as soon as possible with little guidance was a little challenging, but fun.
Yeah, of course. I don't know if you had the same thing, but service advisors, salespeople, there's a lot of similarities, right? But there's also a tremendous difference with maybe the pace or
100%.
Service advisors are just nonstop all day on the phone communicating, especially the good ones, right? Where you have to train, and if they don't know, like this, that your sales consultants or finance, you're constantly having to train and update. Like and I know this is going to be a question later, but it was very important to make sure that the staff understood the importance of that communication.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's been one of the major notices for me. And the variable side seems more psychological, I guess, is one way of saying it. I mean, obviously in fixed, you still have to present your menus and your inflection matters and walking the dog matters. I mean, that aspect is still there. It just seemingly isn't as big of a deal, I guess.
Do you find on the variable side that they're more open to that constant training and things?
Yeah, 100%. And who knows? I mean, most of that could be because of the past, and that's the way it's always been done, type thing. But yeah, I mean, you should have seen how people are looking at me when I come out with spreadsheets and steps on process steps and the road to sale broken down with micro levels, and they're all looking at me like I'm crazy. But on the fixed side, it's more normal, I guess.
Right. Carol, welcome back. You had a little technical problem there, but we got you back.
Internet drop at the dealership, so just tagging my phone.
I was enjoying being Carol.
Yep. Yeah.
So Carol, we'll bring you right back into it. What do you think was your hardest thing that you had to learn about the sales side of the business?
I would say two things. One, coming on to a brand new brand. I work with 4 different brands. Volkswagen was a brand new brand for me. So that's one thing, learning about all of the different incentives on the sales side and making sure that they were applied correctly. I think they can be very tedious on the way that there's so many different things that you have to pay attention. One line will say you can apply it to all of these vehicles, and then the fine print, is very specific on when you can do it. So just, incentives on the brand, I think, was one of the biggest things. The other thing that was an adjustment for me was coming from the fixed side, very, very data driven. And I look at every single piece of KPI to figure out, where my business needs opportunity to grow. If it's a people problem or process problem, and then take it from there. And on the sales side, there's a lot of metrics that we looked at, but not it. Sometimes it doesn't feel like as many or as in depth as we do on the fixed side. So, just trying to adjust my view on how we do things on the fixed side while we're looking at on the sales side, the difference on the metrics and all of that.
All right. Randy, how about you? Biggest struggle of what to learn?
Like I said, probably that not being able to be 100% focused on, like as I said earlier, like not being like that 100% focused on fixed ops, right? And so you don't have your finger on the pulse, 24/7 like you normally do. There's, I'll reiterate kind of like what these guys said, the incentives, right? When I came over, I was the fixed ops for the Mazda dealership, and then we bought a Lincoln Volvo dealership. And you want to talk about three totally different manufacturers on how they process things, and or how they handle like back end stuff, or how to submit warranty claims and all that stuff. So once I've after being the fixed ops director of all three for about a year, I finally felt like I had a grasp on how to do from fixed, and then when you kind of pluck that out and then you go to the variable side, and now it's like retraining your brain on all the different incentives, and you're learning, and it's just it's tough, right? And that was probably the biggest for me going into the GM side, was understanding everything from Lincoln and Volvo, who are two totally different manufacturers, and because I'll be like, oh, you got to this is how you do this, and it's like, oh wait, that was Volvo, not Lincoln. So yeah, that would probably be the biggest struggle I had.
I think one of you brought it up too, and it's a really good point. Is at least for me, I experienced it was a vast change of cadence or pace.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it was you, Randy. Where, I mean, there's days you don't sit down. I mean, you're turning and burning all day long, and then
day goes like that.
Yeah, I mean, 10 minutes later, you're like, oh gosh, it's time to go home. Variables, the slower pace took me a little bit to kind of feel like I was still being productive in.
Yeah, there's a big difference between a salesperson selling 30 cars in a month and being a superstar, and an advisor writing 15 to 25 repair orders in a day.
Right? Oh, 100%.
That's a big difference in movement in your day.
Takes a special breed.
It does. All right. So, how about as you started to learn your roles, where did you find the training? Where did it come from? Was the dealership? Did they have somebody that was there to mentor you through? Was it just get in there, take some classes, and learn as you go, or kind of take us through that a little bit? And Carol, we'll start with you.
Right. So I think for me, I was a little bit lucky in this aspect. Champ Automotive sent me to the General Manager Executive Program with NCM. And that was, 1 year long program, learning everything about, becoming a GM, what to look at and all of that. So that itself was very valuable and allowed me to learn a lot. At the same time, as being part of the directors with Champ, we used to have these weekly meetings with the variable director, the fixed director, the hospitality director. And so I got to learn and see what, the different KPIs were that we would look at, on the variable side, some of the areas of opportunities across all of our dealerships and the different brands coming from the director's perspective. And so that experience really allowed me to, combining that with going to GM school to have a better understanding coming into this position. I also have a lot of support from the GMs in my group as well. Any questions that I have, anything I'm trying to understand in regards to the KPIs or implementing something, doing something different. There's been a lot of support in that matter.
Excellent. Forrest, how about you?
Training in automotive. What's that?
That's a whole different show.
Yeah, absolutely. No, like I said, I have a pretty unique path, and I'm very fortunate and lucky that my dealer or managing partner is very, very smart, and I can reach out to him at any time. But my last training was to become a master tech for Ford. So aside from that, I've got nothing. All my fixed I learned on the job. When I was service director, I learned on the job. I was very fortunate though with our structure, and it's funny because looking back at it, I'm appreciative, but at the time I was kind of upset. But our pay plans and stuff were structured as really like a GM pay plan, but part of on just fixed side. So for the last however many years, I've been constantly going over expenses and net and looking at stuff that some people might not usually look at, but I was forced to, and that paid off dividends for me now, where it was actually a pretty smooth transition. I didn't really have to learn any of the GL stuff or accounting stuff because I was kind of already doing it, but just for half of the store, And now the biggest pain points or transition points was literally just learning variable, the tools, the systems, the softwares, the mentality behind it, and where it does vary from fixed a little bit with some of your marketing and such and conquest, but no formal training at all. Just here's the keys to the castle, and good luck. Don't mess up.
There you go. Good stuff, Randy. Randy, what kind of support did you have?
Well, I'd like to say that the support that I got was the years of being in those manager meetings. We had an owner that was very open about expenses and very open, and he shared the financials so much. Of course, I just get done with like a marketing and business degree, and I'm staring at him all day in school, and then I come out and then I'm looking. I mean, he showed them to me from the beginning, so I got a really good grasp on it just over the years. And then when I became the GM, we would have the processes and procedures, the 7 steps that he would walk me through. That was important. But when it came to the actual, again, these were new manufacturers to us. And I didn't have a lot of support at that time. So I had to self-teach a lot of how certain programs ran from month to month. And so again, I had support, and again, it was years of being in those meetings. And it was also, the importance of him inviting me to the sales meetings, him inviting me to, or if a new finance company came in, I wanted to be a part of those because as a fixed ops director, because I needed to know, how do we make those claims, right? Like if it's a windshield claim, or if it's, any claim that they would sell out of finance. So I felt like I had a good, strong understanding of it, but then the actual variable, processes and procedures, I had support there. But when it came to the manufacturer, the owner or dealer principal, he was just as green as I was. So it was a lot of trial and error. I could say that.
Trial and error is what builds us, right?
Right.
So there was some various levels of support there. But at least you all got some support. Forrest, it's cool. You were a master tech for Ford. I started my career out as a tech, and I've said this before. I was not good at it. So after about 4 years, Ford asked me to not work on their cars anymore. So.
That's the first I've ever heard that.
So we are gonna get moving into segment 2 here, but we are going to do our stat of the week, and that is brought to us by Parts Edge. 100% of employees are people. 100% of customers are people. 100% of investors are people. If you don't understand people, you don't understand business. And that is from Simon Sinek. And again, brought to us by Parts Edge. And I would say that it's a different type of stat, but it's 100% true, right? This business is all about people. And if you can't work with people and understand people, then it really doesn't matter whether you're on the fixed side, the variable side, if you're running the body shop, the parts department, or the detail department, you're not gonna be able to succeed at the highest level until you really learn to understand people. Segment 2 is the how-to of being a GM. So we're gonna touch on some things that you guys are doing as GMs, and how you're making it work, how you're running the stores. And so start out here with you, Forrest, and we touched on this a little bit, but your approach to training and development, how has that changed since you've become a general manager?
I think I kind of had a blessing going through the motions of this industry from filling so many roles and growing up. I mean, this has kind of been my only real job aside from the military, where I've got to fill all the roles. So I've kind of got to feel and see what it's like from people above and below, and take mental notes throughout my career of, I never want to be like that guy, or wow, that was great, I got to do that, or whatever the case is. So that's really helped me a lot per se. And then trying to structure, I mean, there's no secret now that fixed is getting harder and harder to staff nowadays, especially on the technician side. So just really diving into stuff like that and creating programs for retention, and taking the extra steps and slowing down with the staff on why we're doing certain things. That's always been my pain point in this industry growing up, is anytime you ask questions, you get the typical "because I said so" type thing. And that's fine. I get it. But at the same time, I'm a firm believer if people are understanding what the reason is, or why we're doing something, then they'll solidify it in their brain and keep pushing for the common goal. That, and really just morale and building the unity between the dealership, between the departments. I think all of us can probably sit here and count all the dealers we've been through. There's always animosity between sales and service, or parts and or whatever the case is, and just trying to bridge that gap to get the common state that we're all in it for the same reason. We're all really the same team and family, and that seems to drive the needle more than some of the fine-tooth stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll even kind of pick up on that, is the importance of that training and development. And it's a lot of like psychological, with even like all the classes I felt like paid off eventually, because that relationship that between the fixed and sales is so important, right? And I was very blessed to have a sales manager that I worked with for probably 6-7 years while I was the fixed ops director. And we had such a great relationship. I knew I could always go to him if something were, whether it was positive or negative. And that was the other thing. It was making sure that they knew, like, hey man, you guys did a great job on that. Like, you didn't just run the car into the service drive and say, I need this fixed right now. And it's like, dude, you got 5 people in front of you. Like, it's just, I can't just drop, I've got people I need to support. That was really important when I became the GM, was making sure that sales and service really connected and really, spoke on a regular basis. Because at the end of the day, and this is something where, I talked about it before, where I literally, not just me, but my staff, we took a 20% retention and made it 70%. That's more units in operation. That's, who do you think were buying the majority of those next cars, those new cars? The people that we were retaining as customers. Mm-hmm. So we, and really making sure sales understood that importance of, this is repeat business right here. This is something, putting food on the table. So if you guys can gel and mesh well together, you can see a lot of success with that.
I think it's pretty exciting to just hear this from both of you, because so when opening this new dealership, that's one of the pieces I was most excited about, was being able to build the culture from the beginning, just picking the leadership team, picking everybody. And the number one thing I wanted to work on was relationship, across all the departments, and making sure that everybody was helping each other and on the same page. And it's never a sales fault or service fault or parts didn't do this. So, let's work together. Let's have a great relationship. Like we can only grow together. And there's just there's so much work to do in the industry still, across all the departments, really, coming together to be on the same page. But one thing I will mention, coming from the fixed side, that I'm really working on implementing in my dealership on sales. It's the amount of training that we provide our team on the fixed side. At least coming from the Champ Automotive Group, we make sure that our service advisors or technicians or parts advisors, everybody has training before they actually start their role, versus just saying, here's your tablet, your computer, and, just figure it out, a week into it, can log into everything. So, we try to make sure that we are, giving everybody the right training so they're successful and we're retaining them on the service side, right? And I want to make sure that on the sales side, it's going to be just as important. I feel like the client advisor or salesperson role can have as high as turnover with like a service advisor might be. So really, really making sure that everybody's getting the right training.
Yeah, that's great, and I love that you talk about making sure they get some training before they actually do the job. We get, and sometimes, probably more times than not, we get them into those positions, and we've hired in haste. We had to fill a position, right? So now you had to fill a position. You don't have time to spend another 2 weeks training somebody before you let them do the work. So you just got to get them in there, right? And then we're constantly fighting that battle where we're constantly behind. So to see it from your side, Carol, and then to see that that's a focus, is getting people training before they get in there. That's really great. So how about an example of a strategic decision that you had to make as a GM that was influenced because of what you know about fixed ops, and whether that's a data-driven decision or something else. But Forrest, we'll start with you on this one.
I think some of the recon stuff that I tinkered with was probably majority driven by fixed ops principles, obviously. Just trying to add a little bit of extra money on the books for the fixed side, just knowing that the used team will be able to knock it out of the park still. But as a whole, I mean, that's really about it. Like I said, my fixed stuff was a little different, kind of diving into expenses and stuff. So most decisions are still in the same realm, I would say. But I do throw some carrots to fixed from time to time.
All right. And Randy?
I've got a it's actually kind of cool story, because it's, I actually use OEM Interactive as, to help me with this. So, long story short, a lady down at the university that was local to us, her car broke down, battery died, and it's freezing cold. She needed to get to, it was 5 o'clock, everything was closed. I'm on the phone. I could hear in her voice, she's crying. She can't get to her class. And I felt terrible. And so it's, to me, it was about going above and beyond. And so, like, how do you get that from 20 to 70% retention? It's going above and beyond. And so, I drove down there myself. I said, look, I'll come down, I'll jumpstart it. We'll drive it over. As a matter of fact, I'll leave you my car. which was a demo at the time. And I said, you'll have this, I'll bring it back and get it taken care of. Same thing happened on the sales side where, we had someone that wanted a very specific Volvo, and, we're in Illinois, and the only one in the country was in Boston. Well, that's where the headquarters is. I reached out and I played, the logistical manager at the time, and, trying to do a dealer trade and doing all, I'm doing that side. But then I'm also, reaching out where they said, I don't want that car being driven back, and we don't want to pay the extra dollar. We'll make a trip to Boston. And so I had to coordinate, all of the financing and everything with that dealer, which was great. But OEM, the owner of our company, Aaron Waters, actually said, I talked to him and said, would you mind doing the delivery? And would you mind be able to, because I trust you, I know you guys were, just a few miles down the road from that particular Volvo dealership. And because they wanted to put the first miles on in that importance of what, listening to them. It was the same thing as, I getting phone calls from that girl's father, literally almost in tears, like, thank you for taking care of my girl. Like, I'm in Chicago or 3 hours away. There's no way I could get down there in time. I appreciate that. And so that satisfaction was, taking that from the fixed side of, taking yourself out of it and put yourself in their shoes and, kind of transitioning that into the sales side. You can do the same. You go above and beyond the customer's expectations.
Yeah, so it's a little different, right? On the sales side, you typically don't have those my car died and I need a car right now.
Yeah.
Type of thing, right? Their car may have died, but they don't need a car right now. So you've got a little different situation coming out of fixed, where sometimes things truly are an emergency that have to get handled.
Yeah, and the passion that the on the sales side, that the consumers, they were willing to fly out and do all the things so they could put that first mile on the car. That's what they wanted. They didn't want anybody else to drive that car off the lot.
Sure.
This was their retirement car, their first. It was important to them, and I could see that importance, and so I, took the initiative, and the team took the initiative to logistically make that happen for them.
Yeah, and that's a cool story, because it would have been really easy on your side to say, look, that's not how this is done, right? We're gonna do a dealer trade, and I'm gonna have drivers drive it back, or we're gonna send a transport company and they're gonna take the car and drive the car back here on a trailer. It's easy to have those blinders on and not realize from their point of view, like, how much this means to them. To actually be the person that wants to drive that off the lot. Carol, how about you? Some strategic decision that was influenced because of your time in fixed.
I'm gonna say the way that I dive into expenses. Overseeing the stores in 12 stores, I really wanted to make sure when I was on the fixed side that we were maximizing, every tool that we had out there for whatever it was, So if it was a AI tool to follow up on the customer that was just in for service, and if we had 2 or 3 different ones, why do we have that? What each one of them was doing, how to consolidate everything into one, how to make sure that we're reducing our expenses. And that was probably an area where I'm very strong on the fixed side. And coming into the GM position, I think I had the opportunity, to select exactly what products I wanted to have and everything from the beginning, but being able to stay on top of it and making sure that I'm controlling what I can control is probably one of the biggest ones that influenced me from the fixed side.
Yeah, that's great. I was never a GM, but I don't think there's a lot of GMs out there that dig in a lot on the expenses of stuff, judging by the lunches and breakfast that the sales teams
get. We have total of 12 stores, so every now and then there would be something that was supposed to go to my store in Colorado and somewhere else. So it's like, get the money out. That's not mine.
All right, we are going to do our quote of the day, and this applies to definitely these three here. The reward for work well done is the opportunity to do more. That comes from Jonas Salk, and it is brought to you by Parts Edge. And that is exactly what you guys decided to do in your careers. You decided you didn't have enough to do with running a fixed ops department, and you decided you would take on the variable side of the house also, but not leave the fixed ops side, but actually take on both of them. So, Carol, I want to go back to something you said way back in the beginning, and the importance of community engagement for you. And how has your approach changed or is different from the fixed side to the general manager side? You mentioned earlier that that was one of your driving factors, was that you could now be the one that pushes that community engagement.
Yeah, so it's a huge part for me. So a few of the things that I did when I came out here and opened the store was, joining the different chambers of commerce, the Hispanic chambers of commerce, the chambers of commerce in the different cities around me. Putting our name out there, letting the community know that the dealership is open to them. We want it to be more than a dealership. I don't want it to just be, you're going to come here and buy a car or service a car or come by, get a part. Like, I want people to feel comfortable just coming in here. If we're going to have an event, if something's going to happen, let's come and do it here. We recently partnered with the realtors in this area. They wanted to do an event and just bringing in, all kinds of diversity and realtors around the area. So we did it at the dealership. Everybody came in. They had a great time, a big thing that I'm an advocate is human trafficking. And so I joined the board of directors here, a nonprofit that's called SafeQuest. And, I try to utilize the dealership in a way to where we're making a difference. People that have been affected by domestic violence, human trafficking, women, children. So it's really allowed me to make a bigger impact in the community than I have, I was wished for. So it's huge.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's a great idea to use the dealership for events and things that the community is going to have. Right, we've got these beautiful spaces that we've spent millions of dollars building and maintaining and keeping them looking beautiful. Why not open them up to some events in the community that benefits both the community and the dealership? Forrest, how about you?
Yeah, so my first day here, we decided to change the name of the dealership in a small town of 50, 70,000 people. So we're kind of still in the crawl phase as far as that goes, but just same song and dance, right? Getting the brand out there, the brand recognition, and kind of letting everyone know what we're here for, what we stand for. All of our stuff is military geared. So we do a yearly huge military event where the National Guard comes down and they do their stuff and do some retention stuff, but mostly all veteran things to try and just show what we stand for. And the brand recognition is kind of our biggest thing right now. Name changes around here are a tough hurdle to go over in a town with the size of this. But yeah, Carol's exactly right. It's really neat and cool to kind of either yourself or get your team and family around you and kind of come up with, hey, what is important to us and what drives us and what kind of builds the backbone of your team and culture, and then coming up with a charity foundation or something you can do to help your community that serves you. And we chose military and veterans, and that's kind of what we've been diving into. So we have a partnership with the Honor Flight to get those guys and gals back to some of the memorials that they fought in, and then we do the SRP funds through the military. So we'll donate a certain portion of every vehicle sold to the military to support their guard individuals. But that's what we stand behind here, at least.
Very cool. Very cool. I totally understand the name change parts of things. the town next to me, which is about the same size as what you mentioned, there's a Ford dealership, which for a very long time it was called one name, and in the past 20 years it has probably changed names 5 times through buy sells, and
Is that,
everybody still calls it the original name.
is that this dealer?
What's that?
Is that my dealer?
It is not your dealer, but
Yeah, we're on a handful of changes in the last 5-6 years.
yeah,
Third or fourth name. So
yeah. It's just
little tough.
it's funny when you say things like that, because they might as well just put up the original name, and you'd probably get some more people going back in there as they're like, oh, they're back. Right.
You're not wrong.
Randy, how about you?
Yeah, community involvement was huge. We have the local children's hospital here, and we were really, really big into that. I had a son that spent 6 months up there. My wife works for them, so it was really important for us to make sure that we were involved. The owners really, really, that was kind of like their passion, was the children's hospital. The hospitals would host events for like women crisis, and I would speak at an event and talk to women about the importance of how to, not just getting their car fixed, but what questions to ask, and making sure they knew that they were not the typical, well, I'm just going to get sold everything under over the moon, but giving them and letting them know the importance of like asking the right questions, and knowing that it doesn't have to be like that. At the end of the day, find that dealer, find that group. At the end of the day, I wanted my service advisors or technicians to be the car guy. I take your car to, in that, that was extremely important. Be the car guy. I live about an hour away from the city that the dealership was at, but as word got out and they were owning Mazdas or Volvos or Lincolns, they were, hey, I'd offer, I'll bring your car. You take mine, I'll bring your car in. And because we're, town of 15,000 where I live, but we had Mazdas, Lincoln, and Volvos, and, just offering that, and, just doing that shows a lot for the community.
Yeah, absolutely. I did plenty of that when I was running stores. It was more often than not that I was driving somebody else's car rather than my own. So let's talk about silos, and how do we start to break down those silos between sales and service, or sales and parts, or whatever it be. Carol, we'll start with you.
I think you need to start by ensuring that everybody is on the same page and understands what we're trying to accomplish. I think a lot of the times when we had that miscommunication is because sales has its own goal, service has its own goal, parts has its own goal, but what are we trying to accomplish as a dealership? I think having everybody in one room, and we do it doing a town hall meeting where I have my entire dealership in one room talking about how we're doing in sales, service, parts, community, everything that we're trying to accomplish. How do we perform? And, what do we do next? And encouraging ideas from everybody on how to get there is what's helpful. I think that has opened up things a lot for me, being able to hear different ideas, not just from my leadership team, but also from the employees, from different departments, on different things that they think we can do. And when they see that you take action on that and we're working together, they really start, just mingle with each other, and they know that we're coming into a team. So one thing I love is when I'm in my office and I see, my GSM and my service manager, parts manager, and they're talking and they're having a good time. And it's like, okay, this is what we're trying to accomplish here. So I think it's communication, just having really good communication.
And it's that training, right? And it's the making sure that you're training them to be empathetic to the sales side if you're on fix, and fix if you're on sales, or the parts manager, understanding like there's a process in training them that not just the do's and don'ts, but understand what they're going through, and understand that new person that just bought that 50, 70, $100,000 vehicle, I mean, that's, you know, it's important, right? And so be not just to the employees, but to the customer as well.
Yeah. Forrest?
I think they both hit the nail on the head for the most part, but going back to what I said earlier, it's until you've worked as a writer and your last day of the month and you're trying to close 38-hour rows to hit your goal to your next 0.5% or whatever the case is, or working in variable and you're one car away from your next tier bump and it's the wee hours of the last day of the month. It's very easy to get quick and snippy with people when you don't really understand what they're going through, what their job position is, etc. But Carol and Randy hit it right on the head. I mean, it's goes back to training and getting to know your people. I mean, I'm pretty firm on trying to do quarterly events for the whole dealership so everyone can get together and mingle and really get faces to names. But anytime we have issues that kind of arise like that, where the sales guy speeding the vehicle into the shop to get a washer jet put on so they'll buy the vehicle or whatever, to really get them to, one, slow down a little bit, but two, just have the fixed guys kind of understand what's happening as well, where they can see the importance of it. And really once both sides of the house or all the sides of the house are kind of understanding or putting themselves in each other's shoes, it seems to kind of weed out any of the issues anyway, really, at least in my experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's key, is everybody understanding what the other person is going through, right? You see those things on Instagram all the time, like you never know the battle somebody else is fighting. It's the same thing in our dealerships, right? The sales guy doesn't know what the service guy is going through. The parts guy doesn't know what the detail guy is going through. And everybody has their battle to be able to get that car, that unit, whatever it is, completed. And we don't always do a great job of understanding. And to your point, Forrest, yeah, the sales guy that comes in the shop too fast, there's probably 3 or 4 techs that come in the shop too fast every single time they come in the shop, but the techs don't say anything about that, right? It's because 100%. It was somebody from sales that come in and did.
Yep.
Yeah, you gotta get them together. Carol, I love what you said about that you see the GSM and the other people out there having fun, enjoying each other. That's a great thing. That was one of the stores that I was at. I was walking through the waiting room, and there were a bunch of customers in there. And there was some laughter coming from the service desk. And one of the customers said to the other one, "Well, these guys really have a lot of fun here." And it was like, I was like, man, that makes me feel good. Like they actually, we're not just here doing a job. Like they realize that they're actually enjoying what they're doing. That was all awesome.
And David, really comes back to not comes back, but same thing we do at OEM Interactive, right? And so I've taken a lot of the importance of understanding, your roles and responsibilities, and how maybe sales is from our partner development team and the strategy team. Like we've evolved, as we've grown. We started having weekly meetings with each other and understanding, what is it that you guys are doing on this side? What are you doing on this side? Hey, the partner development team, we're constantly in communication with our partners, and I'm taking that fixed approach of, that was one of the big things, is like, we're not just your traditional, marketing media company. Like, we are going to make sure that we communicate, we talk to you. We're not going to be, another vendor that comes in and sells you a bill of goods, and they maybe give you a training for a week, and then boom, you never hear from them again. We do not. That was one thing that always stuck with me, whether I was the GM or fixed ops, and it was important for our team to mesh and to have events with one another, whether we fly out to all to Boston or or we have those weekly meetings, and we understand. And honestly, it's been able to help us understand all facets of the business. It helps us be better as a team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's exactly what we need to do more of at the dealerships. Right?
Absolutely.
Is more of those things like Forrest, you said you do quarterly events to get everybody together. It's not a sales event. It's not a service event. It gets everybody together. And that's where it becomes humanized. Right now, it's not a job, right? We're human beings, and we need to be able to connect outside of what just the job is.
I think that was a very good point, Dave. That's overlooked pretty heavily in our industry nowadays. Is happy employees, good morale, good culture is really the cure to 80-90% of all of our internal struggles. It really is. I mean, that's how you get more gross and better CSI. And being able to treat people like they're people and not numbers and robots, and trying to mesh all the departments together to get all the people laughing. That's what creates strong, healthy, award-winning dealerships nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Such a change from the past. I mean, I remember when I first started as a tech, I didn't even want to look at the dispatcher wrong because I knew he'd fire me. Nowadays, it's a different animal out there. So it's very, very important, I think, is culture and morale nowadays for a healthy, strong, profitable business.
Yeah, and Forrest, I mean, that's why our slogan is our people, our partners is our purpose.
Yeah.
We've got to take care of each other internally, which will then pass on to our partners, customers. And, that's got to be our purpose behind the whole thing.
It has to be. I mean, you got to put yourself in customers' shoes nowadays. And it's the same thing I tell my guys all the time, especially in variable. Like, you're going to buy a vehicle, most people are looking 3, 4, 5 places, yada, yada. And then you go to drive it. And do you want to be in a dealership buying something when there's 2 employees yelling at each other or throwing stuff or just looking grumpy? Or do you want to buy something from the place where everyone's smiling, laughing, joking, having a good time? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory.
People can feel that as soon as they walk into a dealership.
Yes.
100%.
I think that's such a real thing. Like if you walk in and people are smiling and people are happy, or you walk in and people are avoiding saying hi to you, you really want to be there.
Mm-hmm. I can tell you, Carol, as I've gone around the country and done training in dealerships, and I've been in hundreds of stores, you can tell within the first 30 seconds what that store is like when you walk in there. It does not take long to understand whether there is a really great culture or a culture that needs some work at that store. And
I'll even tell you this, Dave, and this is because of just being part of businesses in general. I tell my boys all the time, hey, if you get, if both of you get 100% or 90% on your spelling test, Daddy will go get, I won't say the name of the company, but I'll go get donuts on Fridays. And so when I walked in there 2 weeks in a row and the lady goes, ugh, or walks away from the counter, I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'll just go to the next place. And so, I would, and it's unfortunate, but
it's definitely true. All right, we are coming to a close here. We're going to move into segment 3, and that's the road to being a GM. And so let's start with, what advice would you give to anybody in fixed ops, any position in fixed ops right now, who is thinking, I want to move into a general manager spot at some point in my life? Randy, we'll start with you.
I will say that you're in better position than the average person to go into a GM role. And even if you have 0 sales experience, you have a better grasp of the customer, because you're speaking with them on a 2, 3, 4 times a year basis. You know what they're looking for. I mean, I used to be, I'm a numbers guy. I would look at license plates and I knew exactly who was who when they would pull in just by the license plates. Everyone has their little niche. But I would say that feel confident that you can do it, that you can become a GM. You don't need, you need good training. You need good communication with that upper support staff, whether it's ownership or managing partners or whatnot. But yeah, I would say anybody that comes from fixed ops that goes GM, you're in a really solid place to become a GM.
Excellent. Carol?
I would second what Randy said there, as far as you don't have to have that experience on the sales side. Like, having a good understanding on fix is going to make you very successful as a GM. And I think, we got to think, I'll encourage them to think outside the box, and step out of the comfort zone. Because a lot of times it's that fear of, what sales look like. Am I going to be able to do that? And I think, in the automotive industry right now, there's a higher chance and opportunity in somebody coming from fix to be a GM that there has ever been in the past. I think we're really evolving on that area. So I would say step outside the box, look for mentors on the sales side, on the variable side, people that can teach you and coach you, what's important in the business, and start learning about those things so you can be more prepared as you approach that.
Awesome. All right. Take us home, Forrest.
Yeah, pretty similar as a whole, but I think for me, there's a few things I don't believe you can really teach, and some of it's work ethic. It takes a certain type of person, and same for fix too. I mean, there's long hours and you got to work hard, etc. But really taking the time to understand what's happening when you're doing certain items. And what I mean by that is, like, when you close an RO, where's the cost going to? Where's the sale going to? How you get unapplied, and just kind of venturing yourself above or around your current role and position, because anything you learn about that section or department is going to better you at any role you're in at the time. And I think, I mean, for me, it was mainly my curiosity that I think kind of got me into this spot, willingly or not. Is I was the guy who always asked questions, or why is that work like that, or why are we doing it this way, or what's happening on the back end on the GL when I close it to this pay type or whatever. And once you kind of get that full understanding of how stuff's routing and working and how everything's working in conjunction, it's really a pretty easy and seamless transition. Honestly, it really is, because you're kind of doing the same things, same aspects. But I guess pointers for the future is work harder than the guy or gal next to you, and take the time to really soak in and learn whatever you possibly can, even if it doesn't apply to you right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions. Knowledge is key.
I love when new people want to sit down and go over, hey, what can you show me how the financial works, or whatever, because I find personally I learn more about my job by teaching them than any other time ever. And maybe that's just me, but I feel like I've learned more from trying to teach people from what I know than being taught it.
Yeah, I've never had a fear in any sort of management staff. I've never had a fear of teaching anybody what I know, because in reality, I'm probably going to teach myself something even as we go through it, or maybe there's something I didn't know, and then I'm going to educate myself. I was never afraid of, someone's going to take my position because I taught them everything. Like, no, it's teach them everything. It only makes the business better. It only makes them better. And they buy in more, right? And so, yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to train and let your people. I'm a big advocate for letting them know they can ask me anything, letting them know that nothing's off the table. I have, there's nothing to hide. I want you to understand the business. So yeah, very important.
That's great. All righty. All great points. We've gone a little bit over time here. I want to thank our guests, Randy, Carol, and Forrest. Thank you so much for coming and taking some time out of your days to impart some knowledge upon the industry that we are all so fond of. And thank you again to our show sponsor this week, Automotive Warranty Network Incorporated. And with that, we will see you next week. And actually do one other thing. Next week's show is Coaching for Success. We've got 3 great coaches there. None of these coaches from the automotive industry. So they're going to be bringing you some information about coaching people at a high level that does not actually come from automotive. but I promise you will be very relatable and helpful to your teams. And so thank you, everybody, and we will see you next Thursday.
Thank